give you a little history of Bonny Doon, and then maybe talk a little bit about where the winery is going, and then we can taste some wines. I started out a little over 30 years ago with the idea of making the great American Pinot Noir. This was my obsession, this was my idée fixe, this was my mantra. It turns out I grossly misunderestimated how difficult it would be to produce Pinot Noir in California by maybe a factor of 10 or 20, doesn't matter. I was off, way off. However, luckily for me, I made the acquaintance of the Albanian wine merchant. This was in Albany, California, Kermit Lynch. And Kermit was a big partisan of wines of southern France, of Côte d'Iron. And I had a very simplistic hypothesis. It is warm and dry in southern France. It's warm and dry in the central coast of California. Therefore, the varieties of southern France might be interesting in California. This was a very simple idea, but it turns out, I think, to be correct. And no one had ever thought of this before. And actually, at the time, no one knew anything about these grapes. Nobody knew Syrah was a cool climate grape. Nobody even knew that Mourvèdre existed in California. And no one had ever imagined that you could actually combine these things and make a wine. So I thought, Pinot Noirs, there were old vine Grenache in California. There was very old vine Mourvèdre. Mourvèdre 100 years old. Grenache 60, 70 years old.
Yes.
And the Syrah was not very old at all and not very good.
Oh, okay.
But, so, Bonny Doon, we made Cigare Volant for the last 25 years, since 1984. And it's been very nice wine. And Bonny Doon started very, very small, extremely small, and then it grew in complexity and size, and it suddenly became a very large business. And I'll tell you another thing that's sort of strange. You know, in the last year or so, I've had a chance to really reflect upon my career in the wine business. And one of the things that we did was we did several vertical tastings of Cigare Volant. Tonight we'll just do a little baby vertical tasting. But we did tastings of every vintage of Cigare Volant from 1984 to the present. And something very interesting happened. Now, granted, remember, the older vintages we've poured in large format bottles, very large 3-liter, 5-liter bottles. But tasting all of these vintages together, the most interesting wines that I made, that we tasted, were the two first vintages, the 1984 and the 1985. So it was a very humbling experience, because all of my reasoning and thinking and planning and scheming and trying to make things better, none of it did any good at all.
Quindi è stata un'esperienza che l'ha resa un po' umile davanti il fare il vino, perché dopo tutti gli anni di studi, le sue conoscenze, le sue esperienze eccetera, non serviva, o serviva meno, perché quella, quando ha fatto sempre tutto questo bagaglio dietro, era il migliore.
In fact, I think I actually have learned some things in the last 25 years. But what I'm trying to do now is recover that original sense of wonder, intuition, connection. It's sort of understanding things on a different level, not so much on an intellectual level, but having a kind of an emotional or psychic connection to the wine.